Okay, we are back after the little interruption, and you'll see that I've started making a mine door. So basically, the story is that on a public server, somebody can like literally walk into your mine and take any ores that you have, or indeed just mine out whatever ores you have in there and take them for themselves. Much more likely, they'll try and steal any ores you have already smelted down from the any lumps, sorry, you've smelted down from your ore. But it's definitely a concern. Now, if you're on a private server or on a server with like just a bunch of friends or whatever, you don't need to worry too much. Also, if the mine is completely on deed and you have your permissions set up correctly, you also don't need to worry. But some people prefer to just throw the door on it for security reasons anyway. So for the door, you need one lock, uh, 21 planks, and 2 large nails, I believe it is. Let me just have a little quick check. Yes, 21 planks, 2 large nails, and 1 door lock. If I go into crafting recipes here and go something like mine, you can see there's a couple of different ones there. We're making the plank door or the wood door. So you start off with a plank and a large nail, and you need 1 door lock, which is just made with an iron lump and a small anvil, which you'll see in my inventory just there, and 20 planks, 20 additional planks, 1 additional nail, so it all gets added together. So we're just gonna craft this up real quick, and we're gonna place it onto our mine shaft. Now I've mined in a little, like just a couple of tiles, just to kind of get it started and make sure that when I placed the door, it wasn't like right up against the you weren't right up against the door when you were trying to mine. That seemed like a good idea. So we'll just let this all craft out now. This probably isn't that exciting, so we'll come back in just a little mo whenever we've fully crafted it. Okie dokie, all I have to do is add in the last of the nails and we are good to go. Shouldn't take too long. Boom, done. Okay, excellent. Okay, close that. Pick up our door, goes into our inventory there, and then all you do is activate it. You'll need to select the tile border just here, and it says build mine door. You attach it, hammer it in there. There's no actual action, but you'll hear the little sounds. And give it a second. Boom! 1 mine door. Okay, now one of the things I'll need to do is, because I own technically this mine now, I need to set up my permissions. So we can go to manage mine door, and we can go to citizens of Weemdale are able to pass through the door. You don't need to deny all for everyone. I don't believe it shouldn't cause any problems. That's something actually I want to test. Now you can, if you so desire, add individual citizens of your deed, but they all inherit the citizens of Weemdale, for example. So the citizens of your deed are all inherited permissions from here. If you specify them though, they become like the master permission. So for example, if I say Alexander like went crazy, although he is following the path of insanity, so that's definitely a thing. We could say deny all there, and he won't be able to do anything, even though here on the permissions, he has technically access, because that kind of supersedes that. So let's make sure we don't do that. Hit apply changes. You can name your door if you want, and that's it. We can now pass through the mine. It doesn't really, it's not very well animated there, but and sometimes it doesn't appear, but it's always actually there. Just sometimes you can't see it. You just are able to pass through it, and once you get far enough away from it in the mine, it'll kind of pop back in. The good thing about it is creatures are not able to pass through the mine door. So even if you're playing on a private server, and if it's in the middle of the wilderness, for example, we're not that far from Wayndale, but as we've seen, a greenish black wolf decided to spawn right beside us here, and that wouldn't be fun if we were really far away. Particularly if it was an aged one. I don't know what that would be compared to player speed, but it probably wouldn't be pleasant. So yeah, you might want to just have it for safety reasons, which is cool. So what I'll do is we will just rejoin the action whenever I get as far as the prospecting. I think I have found some interesting stuff, so I'll just take a little quick break here and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back and we are in the mine. Now, one just little quick thing I mentioned, I think earlier, the live map, it changes between subterranean and above ground, which is good. So that's pretty handy. It makes navigating mines a little bit handier as well. So that's just real quick if you're like, what's the difference? So you can see it just there. Okay, on to how to, not necessarily mine, because let's face it, all you do is click that button. But let's go on to if I can find it on my skill tracker. I may have removed it. Oh no, there it is. Okay, prospecting stroke analyzing. They're kind of the same. So let's start off with a couple of recommendations. First thing I recommend you do is one of the buttons up here is called prospect, and that's directly linked to your prospecting skill. And all you literally have to do is go into a mine just anywhere and pick any wall. It doesn't really matter. And literally stand there and say this one, for example, hit prospect. It'll tell you some information regarding that particular wall. So we know, you would mine stone rock shards here. Yes, of course you would. But yes, that's kind of how you start to level up your prospecting. I didn't notice if that leveled me up. It probably didn't level me up much. Yeah, a little bit, 0.01. Not great, but at lower levels, that's the increase will be definitely a little bit bigger. I can't remember now what it is. And what you'll want to do is just kind of just stand there and spam that until you get about 20-21 mining or prospecting skill. At that point, you're then able to analyze rock shards. Now we already know we can mine those from just any old rock face here. So we'll just do that real quick. Now these are a little bit difficult to find sometimes. That's also because they kind of just throw down anywhere. You'll take these into your inventory. You'll right click them and you'll hit analyze. Okay. And it'll go through a couple of different things. You see here, it's bringing up flint and salt. And then something, but can't make it out, south of east. Okay, so now the flint and the salt is not a vein, so there's not really much point in heading towards those. Flint's not. Oh, flint is a vein actually, so we might be able to get to that. I believe it's flint. I'll have to double check. I might head mine towards that. We'll see. It's southeast. Okay. So those are all basically cardinal directions from your compass, and what I find to do is to simplify it a little bit by kind of just picking like definite directions. So we'll just wait for our compass here to settle. There we go. So that's already pointing east. That's good. Now the one thing to remember is that this information is from this tile. So basically you will, if you want to start heading towards that, mine into the tile that you got the rock shards from first, and then figure out what direction you need to head in, if or if you need to change direction, if at all, for example. So next thing I recommend is, you'll see my prospecting is up at this near 70 mark. That is what gives me the this vague trace thing. Now I will start to see and be able to make out what that is at, I can't remember what level it is, but it's definitely very useful to get up. I would say I would personally suggest 60 as fast as possible. It just gives you that extra range. It is just really beneficial, because what you might find is that you won't be finding much, and it can get a little bit frustrating. sometimes, which is it's not great, and sometimes it's just you know it can just be very very difficult and disheartening because you won't be finding anything. But the thing is, you could probably literally walk right past a really good ore vein, for example, and that might be a little bit terrible to once you realize that. So excuse me. One of the little things, if I just bring up my little, oh, that's not there. I was going to bring up the little guide to kind of specify it. Okay, give me a little mo till I find the information so I can read from it a little bit better. Okay, we're back. Usually helps when you click the right piece of information to read from. So yeah, so you will start to get like, just to start off, if you're really desperate to get a mine open, which you might be if you've just started off a settlement, the 35 mark isn't that bad, at which point you'll get that faint traces that we've seen from before. If we can just find that real quick, faint trace assault. So each of these denote a certain tile distance. So whenever you prospect up to that level 20, that will give you a 1 by 1 around you. So like this wall will be kind of it's a little bit hard to describe, but this wall will be kind of this tile, that tile, all around it kind of thing. Slight traces, which is the next one. If I can bring that up on my event tab, there we go, the flint one. That's within 2 tiles, and you'll get that also at level 20, by the way, and that's a 2 by 2 kind of area. Faint traces, which was the next one, there we go, which is the salt, and that's the one that doesn't have a vein. That is 3 tiles away. So if you're desperate, that's your unlocked at prospecting 35. So that's 3 tiles, and that's quite good. But again, I would recommend trying to get up to that 60. Try and get yourself a bed somewhere. You'll notice that I have some sleep bonus. Get yourself up to that 60 mark-ish, and I'll come to that in just a mo. The minuscule traces, which I don't think we detected anything in. Let's have a little look. You do not notice any minuscule traces. Okay, so that's 4 tiles away, and that's unlocked at 51. The vague traces, which is the one we have just got to, is meant to unlock at 70, but as you can see, I'm only at 68, so I don't know how exactly that works, but once you get up to say 68 or so, that should unlock. Somebody did say they seen it at 69.8, but I seen it definitely a lot earlier, as we can see, because there's the vague traces. The indistinct traces is the final one, and is supposedly unlocked at prospecting level 85, but that has yet to be confirmed. I have not got to that stage myself. I don't know if I will. And that is so. And let's see, your faint traces is 3 tiles. Minuscule traces is a 4 by 4 tile radius. Vague traces is the 5 by 5, which is pretty good. Now, I'm not. Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing with the way the directions and stuff work. So, oh, it's not light outside. That's always nice. That it can be a little bit difficult to kind of start to navigate yourself around, which is sometimes why whenever you're starting out, I would recommend the faint traces at level 35, because that will be a 3 tile radius, a 3 by 3 radius somewhere, and that makes it a lot easier to try and figure out what the directions and stuff mean. But I also will be covering it in this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can maybe track down this vague thing that we've seen before. If we go to our the quality at distance thing, let's see. Okay, just needs to bring that up real quick. So Um, you will start to see what kinds of ores they are at various different levels. So I believe the vague trace to be able to see what that is and the quality of it is about 90 or so. I'm not really sure it's worth getting to that stage. Certainly I should start being able to see the minuscule traces. Was that a thing? Well, we don't have any minuscule traces, so it's hard to tell. Um, Fair enough. But really, yeah, maybe it might be useful to see if it's worth your while mining to that. But really and truly, you're probably going to want to do that anyway. So, and it's only really a few tiles. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and find out what this is. So we can't make out what it is, and we know it's south of east. That's good. So we're going to head east, which is the way we're pointing anyway. And I find it best to just try and simplify it a little bit, head in a direction until it changes, and then basically it'll only be a difference of maybe a tile or so. And then if you notice it disappears, for example, particularly at the higher ranges, it might, you could literally walk past it, so to speak, and that's fine. Once you've walked into the next tile and mined ahead of yourself again, and notice there's nothing showing up, you know that it's not in that direction anymore, and you need to change to the opposite direction essentially. So I'll know. I'll maybe cover that a little bit better. So basically, we're going to head east until such times as it says either south or it disappears, and then we're going to go back one tile. Or even actually, we should be able to just mine straight south until we're standing on at that point. And that should allow us to find this strange vague trace of something. Okay folks, this is another part of the video that shall not be very interesting, but just before we go, I did want to throw out something that's not that well known. Mines in Wurm Unlimited are, on the Wurm Online actually, or I should just say Wurm, are technically 2D, which is why you don't really need to worry about like what depth your mine is. And veins will basically be like, if you mine down, it'll be the same vein. So say I find that flint vein, for example, and I mine down to maybe get a new tile of it. That doesn't work. It's technically one large chunk of vein. Basically, it's all one vein. So even if I mine down, that's still the same vein. So a lot of people just will not bother mining down unless they're trying to maybe get to water, to have water in their mine for drinking or whatever. That can be a thing. So that's something to bear in mind. It's not really necessary to mine up or down. So that's quicker. It's a little bit simple, but saves a little bit of headache as well. And it also is why the prospecting is in your compass cardinal direction, so to speak. And let me just check something before we do go. Yeah, some of the more unusual things you'll see is south of east, which is a little bit more complicated. But again, if you just keep on going, if you pick a direction that is you're intending to go in anyway, for example, this mine's heading east, so we're going to just go east, and then it'll kind of balance itself out a little bit and make itself a little bit more easy to follow. That kind of just means it's in like a corner of your mining radius, so it's kind of throwing you out a unusual compass reading basically at that point. Alrighty folks, I think I've bored you enough with all this. So what we're going to do is, as I say, I'm going to try and see if we can mine out to whatever this vague trace is, and we'll rejoin the action back at that stage.